I think that your first business should probably be solo founded, and it should start out probably as a service firm.
Hello, and welcome to the Tech Startup Show. In this episode, I speak to Max Weisbrod, founder of Baton, a startup that becomes the operations team for fractional executives. We speak about customer success, automation, and much more. So let's jump straight into it. Hi, Max. Do you want to start off by telling us a bit about yourself?
I am the founder and CEO of a company called Baton, which is mostly a digital consultancy. We focus on supporting customer success departments in seed and Series A firms. They find themselves in a position where their client load is increasing a lot faster than their tooling is able to support them. And we help and put in place the tools and frameworks that larger firms use in order to handle books of business with like 400 or 500 people per for 500 accounts per CSM instead of getting limited at probably like 25 to 50, which they would if they were doing everything manually.
And what exactly is a customer success specialist, and why is having one so valuable?
If you are spending literally like thousands upon thousands of dollars in acquisition costs associated with like marketing to a group of people, reaching out to them, pushing them through a sales process, most of them falling through the sales process, and then like onboarding them, that's a lot of cost per person, right? Going out and getting incremental customers is expensive. Retaining customers and retaining business is dramatically less expensive in comparison. Typically, like a metric out there is like one customer success manager is able to support about like $2 million in book revenue. That's like a target that a lot of people try to hit when they structure their departments and their contact strategy. So, maybe that's 20 enterprise accounts at $100,000 for a small firm, or even if you're very large, it could be one account per manager that's like $2 or $5 million down to like, 50 at like 40,000, things like that. They're able to support a lot of revenue. They're able to retain a lot of that revenue, and they're also able to help you refine who you market and sell to. They'll say, hey, this customer sucks and this one's great. We need more like this and less like that. That message gets refined and sent back to marketing. They're able to have similar conversations and help close more people with case studies in the sales process. They're able to work with your product team in order to refine your offering, all without the executives having to step in.
What exactly does Baton do? So you link customers with customer success specialists, is that correct?
We're more of like a consultancy, or a concierge. So there are customer success managers, right? And these customer success managers, what they do is really like account management. They watch product signals. They come in and they intervene and they manage their book of business. What we do is we give them access to fractional customer success operations resources. Customer success operations resources are, they're people who are able to set up platforms, set up reporting, start to automate some of the onboarding sequences that happen when a new customer comes online. They're able to take feedback that you're getting from customers, aggregate it, consolidate it for the product team to act on. Really like the operational parts of what it takes to make customer success work as your business scales.
And you mentioned a bit about automation. Practically speaking, what does that look like? What processes are they looking to automate and how?
If you talk to customer success managers, they send a lot of emails. They book a lot of calls. Sometimes they've got some manual processes like setting up a demo account or setting up the initial account. Maybe we should go back slightly. Most firms are going to start with a sales-led go-to-market motion. And what that means is that the sales team is going out, finding opportunities and closing them. Or people are coming to your site, they're saying, I want to book a demo, and then they are going through sales. For those firms, they're starting out with a ton of manual touch points. They've got sales meetings where they are, talking about a lot of like the configuration details, discovery, all kinds of things to figure out like what the shape of the problem is. That's getting documented hopefully into a CRM, but sometimes like in a spreadsheet or in an email, at which point it's going to somebody who's going to manage like the onboarding and activation. And by activation, I mean like going from paying you money to getting value from you. Typically, that's success, is going from paying money to getting value. And that starts out manual because you don't know what's going to go wrong, right? Like you're learning new things in conversations and emails and in the field. The customer success manager and customer success operations, part of what they're doing is they are looking through all of these past deals. They're figuring out which parts of it seem to be consistent. And they're figuring out when those things need to happen. Most of the automation in a customer success department, like the 80/20, really is just looking at the steps that happen in an onboarding and then automating effectively emails going out to those people and making sure that they get those touch points. You can get fancier. You can start to monitor, product signals. So for example, if you notice that if somebody comes to your marketplace and signs up and then disappears for 2 days, that person you know from past experience is 80% less likely to come back, right? So you should send them a message at that time. You can automate that by monitoring that product signal of when's the last time they logged in, last time they had a session. And when it goes over 2 days, they get an email drip campaign. Maybe it's got like a 10% discount on their first purchase in the marketplace, something like that, right? And that's the customer success team and the customer success operations department that are typically going to own that. Or it might be like some subdivision of the marketing department. But usually there's overlap in tooling between that part of the marketing department, like customer marketing and customer success operations, if that's helpful.
Mm-hmm. And what does your tech stack look like for this automation, but also for your other technical aspects?
We're a consultancy, right? I can tell you about the tech stack for the products that we put together, which is, usually like MERN, Mongo in the backend, Express, React, and Node, a very basic stack because it really doesn't matter in the early stage. I love Customer IO for being able to send those product signals to my marketing infrastructure and run journeys off of it. So we use Customer IO for email drips, customer journeys, like marketing contact and activation contact. But typically in the industry, what you'll see in large late stage companies, most everything lives in both the CRM, which is the sales organization system of record. And what doesn't live there or lives in the customer success platform. And that's like Gainsight, Churn Zero, Plan Hat, Custify. What's different about like customer success and customer success platforms versus like a lot of other industries in terms of like the tooling that they use is that customer success has this very unenviable position of not really owning any of the underlying data assets that they have to rely on. The sales information naturally lives where the sales organization lives, which is the CRM, right? So the deals that are coming online, the deals that are being closed, all of that, right? Who your customers are or who your leads are. Your CSP would be pulling that from their system of record. Same thing with product. Product is going to be living really in like their data, right? Or maybe they'll have like an internal business intelligence tool or time series analytics tool. I can't remember, there's the Grafana, I think, or whatever, or Metabase, right? Where the product team is coming up with their insights about feature usage, all of that, or amplitude, things like that. The product analytics that are valuable to the CSP, customer success department in those late stage companies will then be brought in from those systems of record. Then you've got tools like Kendo, right? which are kind of like in-app education tools. And that might be owned by customer success, or it might be owned by product. Depends on the company. And then usually the marketing drips, like I've mentioned before, like customer IO, which can also be sent from these CSPs. Usually that's owned by the marketing department. But the signals of like opens, clicks, engagements, all of that, that matters to the success department. The customer success organization has to cobble together all of the data that they need to do their job by borrowing, and stealing from the other departments in the firm. It also means that when there's a downturn, they have to protect their tooling budget, they have to protect their operations budget, because every CFO is asking right now, why do we need a dedicated CS platform if we're already paying for Salesforce, Metabase, Customer IO, Marketo, like all of those different tools that are already in place? That is to say, the tool stack varies by company. In very early companies, they're just using all of those things. And a lot of companies, like if you're below like $5 million in revenue and you're like B2B, a lot of those companies are like in email and Excel, or email and Google Sheets.
As the founder of Baton, what does your role on a daily basis involve?
My days are mostly meetings. There are initiatives going on across the firm, right? Like we had a product hunt launch today for a job board. We have a new service that we're selling relatively soon, like an educational product, basically converting knowledge base articles into short form video content for user education. We've got clients who we have to serve because we're mostly a consultancy. We're also running a survey across professionals in the customer success space. While I don't do all of the work for all those things, and really I do very little of the work for any of those things, that's like what the team does. My job is to enable them, and I'm a tool that they're able to leverage. So what my day looks like, 5 or 6 of these customer success surveys in the industry, which last between 15 and 45 minutes, usually like 3 or 4 hours of client calls, 2 or 3 reviews of internal products that are being developed, and usually just like, a couple of 20-30-minute strategy calls. My day is highly synchronous. At this point in time, I have basically zero control over my time because if I stop moving, then teams are less able to move. Like they're allowed to make their own judgments, right? About what gets done, how things get done, all of that. When they ask for me, I have to give them me, basically. So it's not that I'm a blocker, it's that I'm a tool that they leverage when they see fit.
And you mentioned quite a few exciting things that you're working on. What are your other big plans for Baton in the future?
We are in a search mode right now. We're pivoting, which is a stressful position to be in. But luckily, consultancy revenue floats the company, and we're marginally profitable on that to pay for all of our growth initiatives and such. I really like about where we are right now is that we get to spend a lot of our time in market talking to people in the customer success space, learning from them about like what is changing in the landscape, what are the new opportunities that they're seeing, what they think are the biggest challenges upcoming, and also what they'd be willing to pay for solutions that don't exist currently. What we're trying to do right now is rapidly validate ideas as quickly as possible. That's like, one of the things I think might be very interesting is we've noticed that there's a large trend that's happening in the customer success space is more emphasis on the scaled function dealing with smaller book value deals, right? Where you want to use like automation and all these things in order to be able to handle a larger book of business per CSM. Like 80-90% of the success leaders I've spoken to in the last month or two have talked about that. It's about teasing out from there, where are there viable solutions that we could introduce to the market that would sell through? And right now, like I said before, what we're trying to validate is this concept of short form video content for knowledge bases. On YouTube and TikTok, you'll notice that there's like these highly successful accounts for things like Excel tips or other videos on like how to do X and how to save time in this application or that application. What we're trying to see is if we could port that over using companies as like the distribution method and hopefully offer customers higher engagement and usage of their knowledge bases and customer facing educational like content, higher engagement on that by converting that into short form video. And we're trying to figure out if there's like a price point that we can hit that makes it viable. Have seen a couple of companies where they have invested like, sometimes hundreds of dollars of video into making this thing real. And what they get to is a point where they realize, hey, the application is changing too quickly, and the UX in the application is changing so quickly that the videos are obsolete by the time they're out. So we're hoping that there's an opportunity in that space to sell through and maybe make TikTok style knowledge base application if we're able to sell through on those short form videos.
And what are some of the biggest challenges you faced at Baton?
Gosh, I think the biggest thing is managing your own psychology as a founder. Last week, oh my gosh, like I wake up on Monday, I've got one of my clients saying, "Hey, we want to expand. We want to add like $8,000 or $10,000 a month to the size of our deal." And it's like, okay, that's great. And then I get on Slack and I've got a team lead from our largest account saying, "Hey, I'm not going to work with them anymore. I refuse to work with them anymore. Like, I'm not doing this." And that's before 9 a.m. Right now, my days are going from like 7:30 a.m. to like 9 or 10 p.m. some days. So dealing with like the grind of that, going through like 5 or 6 sets of highs and lows like every single day is really taxing. There was a time when it was just me. Now we're at like I think 18 contributors, but there was a time when it was just me, and it's really dark. It's like really dark in the early days. If like one recommendation to anybody looking to start a company, get revenue before you start. Really, if you're a first-time founder, don't start with a digital product. Start with a service product. Start with like a mid-market service product. Figure out something that you can sell for like $1,000 to $10,000 a month and sell that. Don't try to introduce a product, because otherwise you're looking at like probably 18 months of just depression. Is that helpful?
Yeah. And so once they've got this service-based product, then would you recommend they try automating as much of it as they can and potentially build a product out of that service?
Yeah. I think there's a term for that. It's called like productized service, where after you are in the market with a service, like a monthly consultancy that's like hours based or whatever, start to break that out into a menu of like different activities that you can sell through with set prices. Start to get rid of your meetings as part of your sales process. By the time, early on, you can take like 3 or 4 meetings for a deal that's worth like $5,000. Like you can do that. You'll learn a lot from doing that. But by the time you are like really running your business, you should really not be getting on a phone call for less than like a $20,000-$30,000 deal. If it's less than that, it really should just be a low touch, shopping cart experience on your site. The unit economics just don't work for your CAC otherwise, customer acquisition costs. And unit economics are really critical. The overall like concept of like automation as part of this is a lot less important than you think in the early days, because early on your process is still going to change so much until you've served the same thing like 30 or 40 times. And if you're a business owner, typically your time is better spent bringing in new opportunities rather than focusing on like these operational details like automation. This is, I think, one of the biggest changes that's happened in like the last 10, 15 years. Infrastructure as a service, software as a service model has matured, and you've got all kinds of low-level stuff abstracted away for you. You don't have to be a technical founder. You don't have to be technical. You don't have to understand anything about automation. The core skill set that really is critical is about marketing and sales. You're much better off having somebody who's able to buy a seat on Tegas, finds executives who are in buying positions and asking them what solutions they need, and then selling them that you're a capable person to deliver that solution, than you are learning how to code and building some, shitty app. I really recommend focusing on the marketing and sales part of that. And I say that as a more technical person who's genuinely quite bad at marketing and sales.
And you spoke a bit about some of the realities of being a founder, working long hours, some stressful situations. How do you manage that sort of work-life balance, I guess, and how do you manage that stress?
The reality is that there is no balance. So what you have to understand when you're getting into this is that there's no off ramp, or you don't get to choose the off ramp. If something's not happening, it's your job to make it happen. If you're an employee for somebody else, you don't have to confront that reality. If you don't do something as an employee, ultimately you've got a manager, a director, a VP, and a C-level executive who all act as effectively safety nets below you. If you do nothing and you're an employee in somebody else's business, somebody will parachute in, always. Part of that parachuting in might be firing you, but somebody will parachute in because there's somebody with a vested interest to fix it. When you're a founder, that doesn't exist. It's basically you until your business is large enough that the pieces of the business, equity, portions of revenue, stuff like that, are enough to incentivize people who have that kind of outlook and focus. So really, I would say there are only two other people in my firm of 16 or 17, or like 16 to 18, it fluctuates. There are only like two or three other people in my firm who have that kind of outlook. And that's a high percentage. I think that's the biggest thing, is just recognizing that it doesn't matter if you've put a couple of years of your life, time, and you've given up tons of income potential and all of this other stuff to build this company. If you step away and do not act as that safety net, it will die. It has to get relatively large, like product market fit large, in order for you to be able to bring in the executives that you need to be able to really take a vacation.
Just a quick note from this episode's sponsor, Indie Worldwide, an awesome community of indie hackers, founders, and makers. Upon joining, you'll have access to an active Slack community, one-to-one introductions with fellow makers, over $20,000 in startup discounts, frequent meetups, expert AMAs, and much more. Check the link in the description to join. Also, if you're interested in sponsoring our podcast, check the link in the description once again, or contact us. Thank you. And if I'm not mistaken, you're a solo founder. What are your thoughts on solo versus co-founding businesses?
Personally, I am against co-founders, unless, so there are a very select few people in my life who I would co-found with. Very, very select few. If you have not worked with somebody deeply for, 2-3 years minimum, and not in an academic context, not in any context like that, I really don't recommend co-founding. I think that your first business should probably be solo founded, and it should start out probably as a service firm focused on selling, your specific expertise to the market. After working with, 150 people in the space as a leader, working with other leaders, there are a couple of people who I would co-found with. If you haven't seen how that other person handles really painful conflict, dealing with $100,000 or $1 million potential losses, you shouldn't co-found with them.
Got it. And final question, where can people connect with you or support you?
Definitely connect with me on Twitter. You are looking for a job in customer success. We have a free customer success job board, which even helps you directly reach out to hiring managers, which is like the best way to do it. If you're looking for a job, you want to be getting the emails of of hiring managers and directly reaching out to them. It is like 12 or 100 times better. You can do that at jobs.heybaton.com. That's jobs.heybaton.com. If you connect with me on Twitter, we can give you and you want like videos for your knowledge base, just let us know and we can give you a 40% off coupon.
Awesome. And we'll put all these links in the show notes below. Thank you so much, Max. This has been awesome.
Thanks, Charles. Have a great one.